Ho ho boardies, welcome to Borderline Games. I am Gareth and this is the Chrono Jotter episode 12. Last time we had began to investigate Tama's murder. She was found in the gymnasium with her head twisted right around. We deduced that her head had been twisted using a large pipe wrench, which was no doubt in the tool shed, which is the tool room. And based on her shoes and back, that the scene of the crime was actually taken place in the trees, in the woods, in the forest. She'd been tied to a tree there, and due to the force required to twist the head all the way round, we decided that the culprit had to be tall. Alright, let's have a look in the tool room. Ran pushed open the door to the tool storage room. This time the door hadn't been locked. She supposed that someone must have borrowed the key from Asakura. As she thought these things, she entered the tool room. She couldn't find the large pipe wrench they'd mentioned, though. Presumably, the culprit hid it somewhere after using it. If they ran into someone on the way while returning it, that would have been an awkward conversation. If the culprit really did encounter someone, maybe she'd just kill the witness as well. Ran immediately turned to look outside the tool room. Thankfully nobody was there. Then, let's get out of here quickly, Miss Sakura. Alright. A bit of a fruitless visit, but at least we know it's not there. The morgue. Electrical room, yeah, I want to have a look at that. So apparently Makato was there to fix the generator because the power went out as well. Ran and Anne arrived at the generator room. Asakura, Sai and the deceased Tama had all visited this location, so she thought it was worth inspecting. But after she opened the door to the generator room, the overwhelming noise inside kept her from entering the room. Through the door she could see that Sai was in the generator room, gesturing for her to wait outside.
What are you two doing here?
After leaving the power room and shutting the door, Sai started chatting with Ran. This place has got to be worth checking out, right? You're here too, after all.
My current position, as a suspect, mostly comes from having spent so much time working with Asakura. And if you assume that she and I were conspirators, I become even more suspicious. So I came to see if there was a clue that might exonerate me in the generator room.
And did you find anything? Sai shrugged.
Didn't find Jack. But I imagine you'll want to look for yourself anyway.
Sai handed a ring of keys to Ran. There were 2 keys on it.
Don't forget to lock up after you're done. And to give the keys back to Asakura afterwards.
Oh, sure. One of the keys is for locking the door. What's the other one for? Sai waved as she left the generator room and disappeared from Ran and Anne's sight. Ran. Hearing Anne call out to her, Ran immediately turned her eager gaze onto Anne. Do you think Sarah came here to get rid of evidence? Oh, I considered that too, but probably not. After all, before we departed, she asked me if I'd like to come with. If I'd said yes, she'd have been totally exposed. Anne held her hands behind her back as she turned to look at Ran. Misakura's face is just so overwhelmingly beautiful. Well, she could probably guess that you were going to refuse and go with me instead. Though, right? Rat? Ran's eyes widened and she turned her gaze towards the direction that Sai had departed in. Yeah, maybe. In any case, let's just check the power room for now. Let's go.
Let's go, gamers!
Alright, power room. Inner room. Old style generator. That's it, so inner room. On the left side of the generator room was a small door wide enough for a single person to pass through. Ran approached the door and turned the handle and found that it was locked. So the second key was for this door then. Ran used the other key on the keyring to unlock the door. Behind the door was a narrow storage space. A set of steel shelves reaching up all the way to the ceiling, and some objects on the floor were covered by a dust-proof tarp. Alright. Dust-proof tarps. Shelves? Ran scanned the room. Various spare parts for the generator occupied the shelves, but she didn't spot a screwdriver or any similar tools anywhere among them. Just a place to store spare parts, I guess. Though, Ran had noticed as soon as she entered the room that the dust was distributed in a strange way. The walls and floors were very clean, with very little dust, but there was plenty of dust on the shelves. One of the stacks of tarps particularly stood out. There was clinging dust everywhere on the... There was clinging dust everywhere on and around the stack. Oh, okay, I see what it's... Jesus Christ, Gareth. Except for the tarp on the top of the pile, which was quite clean. Someone must have taken the tarp that was originally on top then. Okay. Oh, that's back to the electrical room. Dustproof tarps. Ran pulled away the tarp on the floor, revealing a coil of cables. Sure, a lot of them. Just as they said, the school is amply supplied with more or less every possible thing they could ever need. But if a real disaster ever took place, would Asakura really be able to replace the school's power cables? I guess we're done in here. Old style generator. In the centre of the generator room, an old-fashioned electric generator with a tarnished copper shell rumbled loudly. It showed signs of rust all over itself. The generator was fairly large, reaching up to Ran's shoulders in height and well over 4 meters in width. Impressive that Asakura is able to repair even something like this. It doesn't look like anything is wrong with it right now. Though I don't know all that much about generators, I can't even tell if this is a diesel generator or if it uses some other kind of fuel. Okay. I think that's it, right? Is it time to leave the generator room? Oh, why are you giving me this option? Right, I've got to stay in there. Just making sure there's nothing else to collect. Yeah, I know that. Yep. Yep. Did this already. There's definitely nothing to click. Okay. Okay, so I guess we're done in here. Is it time? Yes. Morgue. I think I've been everywhere else. Yeah. So this is where the morgue is. Huh. Indo hadn't brought me here yet. Oh, okay. Anne had brought Ran to a room in the corner of the school building. There were no desks here, just steel beds and some tools for dissections. The body bag had been folded neatly and set to one side. A white cloth covered Tama Indora's face. Her neck had been cut open, and her head rotated back to its normal orientation. Neither Miho nor Aya were present, only Asakura alone. Hard to start a conversation. So, it's just you. The two of them have also gone to look for the original scene of the crime. Oh. Ran turned and shot Anna, "Please help me out here, look." Anne nodded and whispered into Ran's ear. "It's fine. Don't worry. Say whatever it is you want to say." Ran took a deep breath and then spoke. So, are you sad that Enduro's gone? Normally avoiding this topic would probably have been the best way of respecting Asakura's feelings, but Ran wanted to find the truth of Enduro's death, and that meant that even Asakura needed to be considered as a potential culprit. Asakura raised her eyes and looked at Ran. Every night before going to bed, the last thing I saw was always her face. She always waited for me by my bedside, up until I fell asleep. And every morning the first thing I saw was always her face too, as she put on her clothes and greeted me with a good morning. Ran listened patiently, waiting for Asakura to finish waxing rhapsodic about Tama. Rhapsodic. Whenever I made the slightest sound from waking up unexpectedly at night, she'd climb down with bleary eyes from her bed to ask what was wrong and to reassure me until I could fall asleep once more. She cared meticulously for me, and now she's not here anymore, thank God. She hadn't given a direct answer to Ran's question, but Ran got the point. Before this, hasn't Dewey ever been killed before? Asakura nodded, and Ran nodded back, decided not to ask about it any further. She approached the bed. The surgical lamp's light cast a waxy pallor over the skin of Tama's corpse, clearly revealing the wound as well. So the vertebrae were dislocated after all. That means she was strangled to the point of unconsciousness while she was still alive, and the cracks and scrapes here were left with her neck when her neck was twisted. I see. Ran pulled the cloth off of Tama, revealing her naked body underneath. Ran looked over it a few times but couldn't find any unexpected wounds. Ran raised her head, looked at Asakura and hesitated a bit before speaking. So, we'll be going now. Asakura nodded and Ran quickly pulled Anne out of the morgue. So we've been everywhere now. Ran and Anne returned to the dining room of the dormitory. Sitting down shoulder to shoulder, they'd been searching the school for clues ever since Tama's corpse had been discovered, and the two of them needed a break. Oh, nice music. Nice post-corpse visiting music. Miss Sakura, we've gathered a great number of clues from the corpse and other places. But they're all jumbled. We need some framework by which to organise them. Perhaps a timeline or something?
Less thinking, more dinner.
Sai appeared behind Ran and gave her a pat on the shoulder. Dinner already? Time has really flown. Is it really the time to focus on food though? I mean, Enduro's still dead.
Well, if you already figured the answer out, feel free to announce it before we eat.
Sai walked towards the stove as she spoke.
If you can't, then set it aside for now, so that you can eat properly, otherwise you'll collapse in hunger, and then we'll all have to take care of you as well.
I suppose you're right. Except that it won't be any of you doing it, because I will only accept Miss Sakura's lovely ministrations. Ran had just finished speaking when she heard footsteps approaching the dining room, one after another.
Ran-chan's already here, huh? Were you looking forward to dinner that much?
Just a coincidence. After Aya entered the room, the other students gradually arrived as well. On the other side, Sei had already started up the stove and began to prepare dinner. Ran used this period of time to exchange ideas and clues with the others. Miho and Aya had found the original scene of the crime as well, but they hadn't discovered anything that Ran hadn't. Kozumi's difficulties with walking had made it difficult for her to find clues though, and she had little to contribute. She mostly just listened to the ideas that Miho and Ran were putting out. When Sai finally served dinner up, its fragrance drew everyone's attention and they all wordlessly agreed to put the discussion on pause to enjoy the food. The atmosphere is still fairly light and cheerful. Ran thought as she shoveled fish fillets into her mouth. In those classic snowed-in murder mansion scenarios, after a corpse appears, there's always a scene where everyone is eating dinner together at the same table. And in those scenes, always everyone is so serious and hostile towards each other. Sometimes they decide that it's too dangerous to eat anything other than canned foods, or one of the characters will jump up and start provoking others or making random accusations. Nothing like that's happening here though, that's for sure. Without Tama there to do it for her, Asakura was left to surf herself. Looking at her expression, it seemed that she was mostly calm now. Miho and Aya conversed on and off with each other, with Koizumi joining in on occasion. Forget it. I guess there's no need for me to be so uptight either. Miss Sakura, would you like to try some fish? These fish fillets from Chrono made, are delectably tart. You absolutely must try one. Anne's chopsticks, fully loaded with bamboo shoots, halted in midair as she looked thoughtfully at the bowl of fish fillets in thick tomato soup. Miss Sakura? Anne, what did my favourite foods used to be in the past? I mean, as far as I remember, as long as we were together, you pretty much ate everything cheerfully. Really? Well, unfortunately, I seem to become a bit of a picky eater now. Huh. It's probably Chrono's fault. So which foods have you developed an aversion to, Miss Sakura? Fish, for starters. Oh, that's fine. I'll eat all the fish then. I love fish. Sai leaned against the chair, overhearing our conversation.
I thought everyone loved fish, though. If you don't like them, Sakura, I'll try preparing them a different way next time.
Hey, if Miss Sakura doesn't like that, then don't try to force her to eat them, Chrono. Not everyone is ocean spawn like you. It's perfectly normal not to like fish.
Oh yeah, because she's a swimmer. You. Didn't you just say you loved fish? I swear you're a nut when it comes to Sakura. Be more normal while you're eating my damn food, please.
What's wrong with that? So what if Miss Sakura's my favourite?
I think it's nice. I wish my relationships were as straightforward as Rand's.
Aya grinned and leaned up next to Miho.
Right, Miho?
I've no idea what you're talking about. I can't actually tell if these two are arguing or not. Well, whatever. They investigated together, so I doubt they could get up to any mischief while investigating. I'm suspicious of those two, purely because last time, something weird like hinting at a relationship was, what was her name? Not Chrono, no. Koizumi? I think it was Koizumi. She was like blushing and it turned out it was because she was the murderer, so I'm looking for anything that kind of suggests any kind of relationship. Right, Miss Sakura. Would you like to go somewhere together after dinner? Maybe next time. Hinata has her foot injury, and I want to keep her company in the dorms. She might need my help, after all, and I can do some of my own work in the meantime as well. Alright then. Truly, Koizumi-sensei is my greatest nemesis in romance. Sorry, Ibuki-san. If you'd like, you could come to my room and the three of us could enjoy a conversation together. Nah. I wanted to sort through some of my thoughts on my own anyway. More importantly, the atmosphere would be so unbearably awkward if it were all three of us together. I'll have a more in-depth discussion with you when I've prepared myself, Koizumi-sensei. Ran rubbed the bangs of hair dangling in front of her eyes, twisting them with her fingers into a rope. She stared at the tips of her bangs to concentrate, as she sorted through the clues to the case in her mind. That's not right, is it? She let go of her hair and the waterlogged strands slowly drifted back apart. So what if someone died? It wasn't Miss Sakura after all. Why am I working so hard to solve the case for them? Is it just because I find Indoro likeable? If it were any of the others, would I be perfectly fine with ignoring the whole thing? Ran allowed her body to slide into the water, and raised her head to look at the mist-shrouded ceiling. Or am I just doing this because I enjoy the deductive process itself? My top priority to retrieve Miss Sakura's memories. Oh, that is my top priority. Is so that I can take her away from here. But the situation has now become much more complex than I'd imagined, given what I know about Koizumi-sensei. For example, what would have happened if I tried to take Hidora away from here? Would she just turn into a skeleton? If I took Koizumi out of here, would she age up instantly? Oh yeah, because Koizumi is actually an older teacher that Ran had. Basically, this seems like it's one of those situations where these girls represent a person in Ran's life, right? Or something like that. Ah! Ran shouted as she buried her face into the water. What do I do, Miss Sakura? I can't figure it out. After Ran reached the limits of her ability to hold her breath, she lifted her face from the water, taking large mouthfuls of air as she wiped away the water on her face with her hand. Then she saw Asakura standing in the bathroom. Ugh! You scared me. I don't suppose I could join the bath with you. Well, you're already here. It's not like I can actually kick you out or anything. My dastardly plan has worked. Asakura took a place under the shower head and began to wash herself. Ran slid backwards, pulling herself close to the edge of the bath to put distance between herself and Asakura. I should say something to Asakura in a minute. But what? It'd be awkward for two people to take a bath together without either of them saying anything. I don't want to leave yet. I've only just soaked for a few minutes, when it comes to topics that I can talk to Asakura about. Ran suddenly realised that it was more or less impossible to avoid bringing up Tama when talking to Asakura, and likewise, somehow every conversation she had with Tama always came back around to the topic of Asakura, intentionally or unintentionally. The relationship seems like it differs slightly from ordinary friendship. So how'd you get together with Induro in the first place? Asakura couldn't help but laugh out loud. As she washed some suds out of her hair, she answered, Wouldn't a normal person try to respect my feelings at a time like this? I forced myself to respect your feelings for like several whole minutes already. I think I've done my due diligence. That cracked her up for a good while again. That's one of the things I like about you. Oh no, is this another one that's falling for me? Asakura slid into the bath, letting her long hair settle over her chest. Ran felt like this side of Asakura was very different from the one that she usually projected. Asakura seems like she's softened up a lot, though there's still something weird about it. Tama and I are just acclimated to each other. Initially it was because we were assigned to the same dorm and I wanted to have good relations with my roommate, but she was just way too proactive about it. And you found that annoying? Are you trying to trick me into saying something I shouldn't, Ibuki-san? What? No, of course not. I'll take your word for it then. I've never thought that Tama was annoying. She's so precious after all, and she's always very considerate about my feelings, so we never had any problems. Asakura raised her hand and brushed her dangling bangs out of her eyes. Since I have a strong relationship with Tama, nobody believes I'd ever do something so horrible to Tama, so the culprit's trying to play a level above us all, and trying to frame me by doing something I'd never do. Even a less painful method would still work if they were trying to frame you, right? Radon hadn't expected Asakura to actively change the topic towards the case, so she immediately grew cautious. After all, to the others, Ran herself was also a potential suspect. Seriously, let's just skip all the she knew and that I knew that she knew that I knew nonsense. Asakura nodded as she laughed. She apparently quite liked Ran's blunt way of speaking. You're far more interesting than Tama and myself, though, you know that. Makoto had smoothly changed the topic once again. What's so interesting about me? From your perspective, we must be a group of complete weirdos, attending class despite the lack of teachers with a light pinch of murders on top of it all. Yeah, like, I seriously don't even know if you're going to be able to take a college entrance exam at all. Yeah, sure. College entry exams. Ever since I got back my memories about Kawazumi Sensei, I've decided that it's not likely that any of the students here are the true mastermind behind all of this. They're probably victims of the situation just like me. But I can't say that there's no mastermind either. I've encountered situations like this one in the past, but they usually turned out to be more like natural phenomena than anything else, with a total lack of self-awareness. But this situation is particularly complicated. There are rules and conditions everywhere. It's hard to believe that this is a completely non-conscious anomaly. Wait. Maybe the supposed complexity is just my subjective perception. Maybe to this anomalous environment, it's just satisfying one simple criterion that leads to the present situation as it is now. Like, say it took an existing complex structure and used that as a blueprint. Ran's experience with the model of 10,000 flashed through her mind, giving her fresh inspiration. Wow, Chrono was right. You really do just suddenly stop talking randomly in the middle of conversations. Just thinking about stuff. Ran inscribed the ideas she'd just had deeply into her mind. See, it's stuff like this that makes us feel like you're the weirdest one out of us all. Me? I feel like I'm completely normal. Yeah? Think about it. You suddenly appear in the school, can't explain where you came from, and then immediately acclimate to our killing game, while also displaying a startling degree of competence in logical deduction. What makes an outsider like you capable of adapting with ease to what should be an extremely strange environment for you? Perhaps you're able to remain so calm only because you know some things that none of the rest of us know. Ran hadn't expected that Asakura would suddenly press her on these things here. Ran didn't know the answers to some of Asakura's questions herself, but as far as the ones she could answer went, Ran didn't want to until she could confirm that the other students were victims of the situation just like her. I'm only staying here to get Miss Sakura's memories back. I'm pretty sure her memory loss has something to do with this school. That's the only reason why I'm forcing myself to accept the way you people live. If I spent all my time freaking out about everything and jumping at the shadows, I wouldn't be able to help Miss Sakura. I don't think Anne's memory loss has anything to do with the school. She was like this when we first met. It's far more likely that she lost her memories due to something that happened outside of the school. True. Otherwise there'd be no way to explain why she didn't get into contact with me immediately after she disappeared. Ran looked down at her blurry reflection in the water. So, then should I... That's what I'm curious about as well. Asakura reached out and put her hand on Ran's shoulder as she spoke, sending ripples through the water that pushed Ran's reflection away. There's no disputing your feelings for Anne at this point, but if your relationship was really as rock solid as you thought, then why did Anne leave you? Weren't the two of you supposed to be together forever after all? What happened? Ran's eyes widened. She suddenly realised that she had no idea when Anne had disappeared or the circumstances of how she disappeared. Her brain only contained the fact that Anne Sakura was not at her side and that she was obsessed with finding her. The cause of all these events had somehow slipped from her memory. No, calm down. This isn't important. It's probably one of the memories I know I'm missing. I'm sure I'll remember it again once I leave. Being with Miss Sakura is the most important thing. Everything else is inconsequential. You're right. I don't remember. It's not important though. I'm sure that Miss Sakura will tell me why once she's got her memories back. Asakura pulled her hand away from Ran. She shifted her gaze away from Ran as well, returning to look straight forward. You really do trust her. You treat Anne as your reason to continue living, don't you? I want to know how you accomplished that. What made it possible for you to make someone else into your reason to live? I've no interest in discussing Miss Sakura with others. Ran rose up and out of the bath. Hot water steamed from her body into the bath, raising splashes, and forced Asakura to squint her eyes. Plus, doesn't Indora deeply value you as well? Maybe you should have this conversation with her, not me, after all of this is over. Her? Ran looked down and saw that Asakura wore a very peculiar expression. Almost but not quite smiling as she stared at the misty surface of the water. She must still be recovering from the shock of Indora's death. Let's leave her alone for now. Well, I'm heading out. Bye. Asakura didn't say a word in response, and only nodded. Ran didn't think she wanted to be alone in a room with Asakura. She quickly left the bathroom and shut the door with great force. Ran knocked on the door to Anne and Kawazumi's room. After the door opened, Anne greeted her. Still wearing the uniform, so she hasn't showered yet. What is it, Ran? I'm getting ready to go to bed, Mr. Sakura, so I came by to say goodnight. Good night. And could you kiss me just before saying goodnight? Anne was growing used to Ran's neediness at this point. She took a step forward and placed a hand on Ran's head. You're quite spoiled, aren't you, Ran? Trust me, I was so much more spoiled in the past. Anne brushed aside Ran's bangs and kissed her on the forehead. Good night, Ran. Good night. Sai was already in the top bunk. She stuck her head out upon the sound of the door opening to see an ecstatic Ran enter.
You sure look cheerful tonight.
I said goodnight to Miss Sakura and she kissed me! Ran sat at the side of the bed, took off her footwear and outerwear, and then laid down in the bed, hugging the blankets and pressing her whole body into a ball. Miss Sakura.
Well, that's good. Looks like the two of you are growing closer and closer then.
Ran realised that the blanket, released the blanket and stuck her head out of the bed frame. Since when did you care, Chrono? Also, I have to say, you didn't go swimming this afternoon. Don't you go swimming every night?
Hey, I've always cared about you, haven't I?
Ran remembered the barbecue, and the way Sai had looked as she prepared food by herself in the kitchen for everyone else's sake. Yeah, I guess you do. Thanks.
Why are you being so sincere all of a sudden? Gross.
You're the one that started it. Ran raised a leg and kicked the top bunk of a bed, causing Sai to laugh.
Okay, that's enough horsing around. Let's go to bed. We still have to finish dealing with Indora's case tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll take a nap for now and wake myself up later to perform a recall. Recalls are best when you're safe and comfortable in bed. Ran opened her eyes. Wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, she turned her phone on to see that it was now 3 in the morning. She pulled out her notebook and flipped to a blank page. Alright, let's begin the recall. Special recall when Tama and Ran separated so that Tama could go find a Sakura while Ran was moving about on her own. When I brought up the jammed cabinet at the tea party after helping Kawazumi apply medication. Okay. There's a lot of recalls this time. Let's go through them slowly. You can also conduct recalls of events from previous chapters as well by clicking on those chapters. Through recall, you can try choosing options that were previously inaccessible due to insufficient stats, or venture to locations you weren't able to visit during exploration mode. Alright, so let's go to part 1.
Special recall. If the students weren't lying, then Tama was never seen again after she and Ran split up, so if Ran chose to go with Tama at this juncture in time, surely she'd be able to acquire more clues. So we see who's lying. Alright, let's do this one. This is a pretty good recall point. I can follow alongside the victim and carefully observe the surroundings. Hopefully I'll pick up something. You go on ahead if you're worried. I'll keep looking around on my own.
Thank you, and my apologies, Ibuki-san. I'll be off then.
Actually, wait, Induo. I changed my mind. I'm kind of curious about the generator room, so I guess I wouldn't mind seeing why the power went out.
Ah, okay. Then I'll send Asakura-san a text so she knows we'll be going to find her.
Tama focused intently on the screen of her phone, holding it with her left hand and clumsily tapping the number pad with her right. Ran had to help steer Tama because she was so focused on the phone that she wasn't paying attention to where she was stepping. She really wants to see Asakura, huh?
And go.
Tama muttered the words she was trying to type under her breath, as she tapped them in one by one. Her input speed was pathetically slow, and her gait was unsteady. Ran couldn't help but grip her shoulders tightly so that she didn't fall. Induo's shoulders are so tiny, and the expression she makes and the way she moves are both so precious. At that moment, both the Ran inside and outside the recall were thinking the exact same thoughts. Still, not as precious as the photos of Miss Sakura from before, though. If those photos of her could move, I bet they'd be even more adorable than Induo. In the end, it took until the two of them exited the school building for Tama to finish sending her text. Ran surreptitiously retracted her hands from Tama's shoulders.
Okay, I'll take you to the generator room now, Ibuki-san.
She didn't notice my hands at all, did she? There's a bit of a distance from here to the power room. It'd be nice to get in a conversation with Induo on the way. Is that something that the version of me in the recall would have decided to do? You know, Induo, I feel like Asakura is one of the most capable people in the school when it comes to taking care of herself.
You're suggesting that I'm needlessly concerned about her, Ibuki-san?
Oh, conversation initiated.
Ran nodded. I just feel like I should go do something for her. I want to serve her faithfully. I just like how I took care of the young mistress's needs before.
She really just used the word serve, huh? Just which family did Induo serve under back then anyways? The young mistress you're talking about, what kind of person was she?
The young mistress? As a person, she was like an ice cube.
You mean she was cold and frigid to others?
A bit, but it's more like ice cubes feel very cold and hard to touch. But actually, they're very unstable, you know? At any point, they might melt and evaporate and disappear forever. That was the impression the young lady gave off to me. After the earthquake, we relied on each other to survive. If I weren't around, the young lady would surely have evaporated.
I see. I didn't want to hear a goddamn flowery metaphor. I wanted specifics. First name, last name. But what's interesting is that Induo seems to think that Asakura is the same kind of person. Someone who would evaporate if she was separated from Induo. I just don't get it. By the time the conversation had ended, the two of them were almost at the generator room. Ran hadn't noticed anything out of the ordinary on the way though. Did the culprit not ambush Induo on the way to the power room then? Then again, in the recalls, I'm usually not particularly focusing hard on the environment and the surroundings, so I can't be sure that I didn't just miss something either. Tama and Ran approached the generator room door. The surrounding area was silent. Sure is quiet. I thought the generator room would be louder.
Perhaps it hasn't been fully repaired yet.
Tama reached out to turn the handle, but only clunking sounds came from the door's lock.
The door's locked. Asakura-san doesn't seem to be around.
Well, since there's no sound, she's probably just finished fixing it. She probably hasn't finished fixing it yet. I bet she's gone to get more tools or something. Why don't we go look elsewhere?
I'd like to wait here for Asakura-san. Since the repairs aren't done, she'll surely come back eventually.
She really wants to see Asakura. And just like she said, Enduro really did just wait here indefinitely for her. Alright, I'm heading out then. My decision to travel with Enduro might have disrupted the killer's plan, preventing anything from happening on the way here. But it's equally possible that Enduro was only killed after this point in the real timeline as well. In any case, it looks like this is all that this recall point's giving me. Let's see what other clues the other points have for me. Alright, so that's another episode of Borderline Games. Next episode, we're going to have a look at these other special recall clues and see if there's anything interesting. We're starting with while Ram was moving about on her own. But for now, that's another episode of Chrono Jotter. See you next time for more Chrono Jotter on Borderline Games. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye.